I remember feeling completely content with my life, earning a stable income, managing my expenses well, and enjoying a relatively smooth routine, until one particular day shook me to my core. It all started with a call from my credit card company. Their tone was professional but firm, informing me of an enormous charge, a staggering $91,000. My heart skipped a beat. A wave of confusion crashed over me as I gripped my phone tighter. "That must be a mistake," I stammered, my pulse racing. "I don't recognize that transaction." Panic flared in my chest as I immediately instructed them to halt the payment. Who could have authorized such an outrageous amount? Had my card been stolen? Was I the victim of fraud? Before I could even process my next steps, my phone buzzed repeatedly. It was Jason, my husband, calling me over and over. He was traveling for work, and while we usually checked in with each other, this level of urgency was unusual. Still, amidst the chaos, I focused on controlling the situation. At 31, I had worked hard to establish myself as a manager at my company. Jason, my college sweetheart and now my husband of 2 years, was also 31. While many of our friends had chosen to step back from work after getting married, I had remained steadfast in my career. Financial independence had always been important to me, and I took pride in the fact that I earned more than Jason. Yet, there were moments when this imbalance made me uneasy. Was his income stable enough for the long run? Would this gap ever cause resentment between us? Despite these lingering concerns, our financial arrangement was clear. We each handled our own money and contributed equally to household expenses. This structure had always given me a sense of control, allowing me the freedom to spend my leftover income however I pleased. That day, on my train ride home, I had already been reflecting on my spending habits. A recent debit alert had caught my eye, and I thought about checking for any unnecessary subscriptions still charging my account. But that thought quickly faded when I realized I couldn't remember the password to my credit card portal. Dealing with financial matters was never pleasant. The company's help center had inconvenient operating hours, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, right when I was working. If I tried to call during my lunch break, I'd be met with frustratingly long wait times. That's why I had developed a habit of relying on the system itself, trusting that if anything major happened, like a charge over $40,000, they would alert me. That trust had made me complacent. Meanwhile, online shopping had become my small escape from the daily stresses of work and life. When I received a package that day, I felt a brief flicker of excitement as I tore it open, but the moment I stepped into our apartment, my mood instantly darkened. The living room was a mess. Socks lay scattered on the floor, empty soda cans were strewn across the coffee table, and Jason's sweatshirt and phone were tossed carelessly onto the couch. I sighed, exasperated. Raising my phone, I snapped a picture and playfully, but pointedly, teased, "Hey, socks and empty cans, really? Is it that hard to clean up a little? Maybe even make dinner if you're home before me?" Jason, sprawled on the couch and fully absorbed in his phone, barely looked up. With an annoyingly casual shrug, he replied, "If you get home early, why don't you clean the house? Don't be so mad about it." His words stung. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm tired too when I get home. If you're not going to help clean, maybe you should decide whether you'd rather work or do chores." His response was immediate and dismissive. "Please just drop it." Twice, he repeated it, as if shutting down the conversation would make the problem disappear. My frustration simmered, but he was too engrossed in his phone to notice. I knew it wasn't just about the mess. It was the imbalance, the unspoken weight of work and responsibilities that I felt I was carrying alone. Oddly enough, after that exchange, Jason's behavior changed. He started coming home late, even on days when I got home early. It seemed he had thrown himself into work, possibly as his way of addressing our unspoken issues. That day, in a surprisingly good mood, I decided to tackle the chores with more energy than usual. Jason had been so busy lately that most of the housekeeping had fallen on me. I hadn't given it much thought, until I found myself cleaning his room. Stepping inside, I was greeted by the usual mess, empty bottles and soda cans scattered everywhere, even on the bed. But among the clutter, something stood out. A neatly wrapped package, tucked away yet still visible. My eyes widened as I recognized the branding. It was from my favorite store. A spark of excitement flickered within me. My birthday was just around the corner. Could this be a surprise gift from Jason? Despite my curiosity, I chose to respect the surprise. I pretended I hadn't seen it. leaving the package untouched. But my birthday came and went. And the gift never appeared. That evening, as we sat together, I casually asked, "Do you know what today is?" Jason barely looked up. "Oh, right, your birthday." His tone was neutral, too neutral. "Did you forget?" I pressed, hoping for a hint, some clue that he had planned something. "No, I remember," he said. "Aren't you happy with what I gave you last year? You're old enough not to need constant surprises." His words landed like a slap. I felt a hollow ache in my chest as he walked away, retreating into his room. That mysterious, gift-wrapped box had ignited a glimmer of hope, but now, all it did was fill me with unease. Then, as if to make things even stranger, Jason dropped a bombshell. "I've got to go on a work trip abroad next week." I blinked. A business trip? To another country? Jason had never traveled for work before, he hadn't even gone on a trip outside the state. "When did this happen?" I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. "They just assigned it to me," he replied simply. Something wasn't right. The day he left, I woke up early to see him off, but as soon as he was gone, my thoughts returned to that hidden package. Unable to shake my curiosity, I checked under the bed where I had last seen it. But it was gone. A wave of doubt crashed over me. What was really going on? That unsettling feeling lingered as I dragged myself to work. I struggled to focus, my mind replaying everything, the package, the trip, the dismissive words Jason had said. Several times, I found myself staring blankly at my screen, my hands frozen on my keyboard. "Hey, are you okay? You seem out of it today," a coworker asked, snapping me out of my trance. I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just didn't get enough sleep." At that moment, my phone vibrated sharply. A strange number flashed on the screen. Normally, I would ignore it, but something told me to answer. "Excuse me, I need to take this," I murmured, stepping outside. A calm but serious voice greeted me on the other end. "This is from our debt protection service. It seems there has been a charge exceeding $40,000 on your account." I felt the blood drain from my face. A sense of dread twisted in my stomach. What on earth was happening? As I stared at the screen, my fingers trembled over the keyboard. The implications of what I had just discovered hit me like a tidal wave. I scrolled through my old emails, searching for any signs, any clues I might have missed before, and then, a name jumped out at me, Billy. My heart pounded as I whispered under my breath, "Billy, what the heck is this?" Anger surged through me, hot and consuming. I wanted to slam my fists against the desk, to scream in frustration, but I forced myself to stay calm, to keep digging. I needed solid proof, not just gut-wrenching suspicion. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop ringing, its shrill sound grating on my already frayed nerves. Each unanswered call only fueled my distress. "Oh my God, just stop," I groaned, pressing my palms against my temples. The room around me felt like it was spinning, my emotions spiraling out of control. Betrayal clawed at my chest, but I refused to break, not yet. With shaking hands, I typed in the password given to me by the call center and accessed my credit card transaction history. The moment the records appeared on the screen, my breath hitched, my eyes widened as they scanned through the purchases, one after another, each more damning than the last. And then, I saw it. An extravagant purchase from a high-end handbag store. The brand name was unmistakable. My stomach churned as the puzzle pieces finally clicked into place. Jason had used my credit card to buy expensive gifts, not for me, but for Olivia, his mistress, the very same Olivia he had supposedly gone on a work trip with. A wave of nausea rolled over me. The proof was undeniable. I had been played, deceived, and financially exploited. My trust had been shattered in the most callous way possible. The phone rang again. This time, I knew who it was even before looking at the screen. "Jason." Forcing down the bile rising in my throat, I took a deep breath and answered. "You finally picked up after I tried so many times," he said, his voice tinged with nervous energy. "Listen, about the credit card." "Who's the card for?" I interrupted, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. A pause, then, an unconvincing chuckle. "What do you mean?" "It's just more convenient to use a credit card than cash when traveling, especially for business expenses." "Business expenses?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You mean the luxury cruise, the couple's vacation package, the The designer handbag for Olivia, was she happy with it? His breathing hitched. Why are you bringing up the cruise? That was just, for entertainment, work-related entertainment. I scoffed. Right, and Olivia just happened to be part of that work itinerary, did she? Stop pretending, Jason, I know everything. There was another pause, longer this time. Then, in a barely audible whisper, he admitted, I'm sorry, I cheated, I messed up, but, his voice regained some desperation, I can't come home until you reactivate the credit card. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Do you seriously think an apology is enough to erase all of this? I asked, incredulous. Do you think I'm just going to pretend it never happened? I understand, he muttered repeatedly, as if saying it enough times would fix everything, but it wouldn't, nothing could. My voice turned cold. Please, spend the rest of your life at your resort, and with that, I ended the call. Almost instantly, my phone started buzzing again, his calls relentless. I turned it off, needing a moment of peace from the chaos. Then, an email notification popped up. It was Jason's flight itinerary. His return was scheduled for noon. 5 days later. 5 days. That was all the time I had to reclaim my life before he could step back into it. The very next day, I took action. I began clearing out his belongings, stuffing his expensive suits, shoes, and watches into boxes. Every trace of him needed to be gone. On the second day, I mustered the courage to tell my in-laws everything, presenting them with undeniable proof of his infidelity and reckless spending. Their reaction was a mix of shock and deep regret. By the end of our conversation, they assured me of their support. They promised not only to back my decision to divorce Jason but also to ensure that I received a $2 million alimony settlement. They even vowed to recover the money he had frivolously spent. Days passed swiftly. The evening before his scheduled return, I received a call from my in-laws. The divorce papers had been officially filed. To my surprise, Jason had left with only a single credit card, meaning the majority of our joint finances remained untouched. However, Olivia had given him $91,000, money she was now demanding back. Enraged, she had even changed her flight, leaving Singapore ahead of him without informing him. When Jason finally returned, he found the house emptied of his presence, his connection to me severed. His calls went straight to voicemail. Desperate and out of options, he turned to his parents, but instead of refuge, he found strict repercussions awaiting him. His parents imposed harsh conditions, treating him like a teenager under house arrest, restricting his movements, and ensuring he repaid every cent he owed. Meanwhile, I took my own legal steps. I filed a $115,000 claim against Olivia, determined to hold her accountable for her part in this mess. With my in-laws' help, I gathered every document I needed. When the case went through, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of a chapter one never wanted to relive. Finally, with all the legal matters resolved, I turned my focus to healing. Returning to work was daunting, but my colleagues greeted me with warmth and kindness. Are you okay? If you need anything, we're here, one of them said gently. Their support was unexpected but deeply appreciated. Thank you, I said with a small smile. I think I'd love to grab a drink after work, just to unwind. That night at the bar, surrounded by laughter and friendly faces, I felt the weight on my chest lighten. I shared my story, and my colleagues listened, offering words of encouragement and solidarity. To new beginnings, they toasted, raising their glasses. And as I clinked mine against theirs, I knew I was ready. The past was behind me, and the future, whatever it held, was mine to shape. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful.